Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, Internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for the weekly track roundup. My thoughts, my feelings on a bunch of songs that have dropped over the past week or so, whether I loved them, or hated them, or felt somewhere in between. All my feelings are here in this weekly track roundup. That is what it is. Okay, also linked down below, our Turntable Lab link. We get kickback from it. Our Patreon page, get some extra bonus, get some monthly content while supporting us in the process, and access to our Discord community too. Our YouTube Shorts page, subscribe today, and worst tracks of the week. Let's get into it. Here we go. Not going to spend too much time dwelling on the negative here. So let's do that quick so we can get right to the positive. New one from Turbo and Gunna over here. It's just, very auto-tune heavy mid with a basic beat. Nothing interesting or special about it. Quite forgettable. Really not much more that I can say. New one from Navballer. It's a snooze fest. As robotic and as soulless as ever. Don't know how this guy manages to just never do anything new or interesting. It's actually quite astounding, frankly. All right, we have a new one from Laufey. It's a handful of little Christmas singles that have, of course, a very forced vintage, like 50s, early 60s vocal pop vibe to it that honestly, when it's attached to holiday music, because, again, it's some Christmas stuff, it just feels, overly saccharine and nostalgic in a way that's, All right, moving on from there, another very uninteresting and boring singer-songwriter type single from the Kid LAROI. Bleed is the title of this one. He has been on this vibe a little bit as of late with some of these recent tracks, and I feel like it's not quite hitting. Moving on from there, Green Day. Second taste of the forthcoming record, Saviors, Look Mono Brains. It's not great. It's not great. It's that's really odd. But it's better than much of what's on Father of All Motherfuckers. But even considering that, it's still a pretty big basic pop punk flop type disappointment. And unfortunately, the new Flo Milli cut, BGC, is just heavy on the vocal treatments. The beat is this sort of awkward sampled funk instrumental that doesn't really groove all that well. It just feels a little off. I can sort of see what she's going for in terms of like attempting to nail down maybe a pop crossover with this one. But I kind of feel like your typical Flo Milli track with a trap beat and a really kind of expressive flow with a lot of funny one-liners is a much stronger formula for her at this point, frankly. All right, meh. Tracks I was not crazy about. You might like them more than me, though. They are as follows. We have a new one from Willow, titled Alone, which honestly, even though it is maybe a little too short and the ending is sort of abrupt, I'm liking the chord progression on this one. I'm liking the vocal harmonies. It feels almost like, oddly, like a Dirty Projectors track when the project was in its prime in the 2000s and early 2010s. Anybody who's kind of hip to that reference, check it out because, there's some interesting similarities, especially on the vocal harmony side. All right, moving on from there, Eminem has decided to release a deluxe edition of Marshall Mathers LP2, but the deluxe edition is pretty much just like some extra instrumentals and one single track with Buckshot, Don't Front. It's kind of a hyper-aggressive jazz rap cut with an old school flair. Nothing too interesting or new for Marshall, but, hey, it's less obnoxious than some of the more recent stuff, so there is that. We can certainly give it that. All right, we have a new one as well from EarthGang. It is psychedelic. It is melodic. Big Outcast vibes on this track too. Blacklight. It's got a good chorus. The issue is that most of the song is chorus, and the verse that you do kind of get toward the back end of the cut is sort of weak, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm just not really sure what to do with this one per se. I feel like there was potential there, but it just kind of ends up taking its best parts and repeating them ad nauseum to the point where they kind of lose flavor, unfortunately. Moving on from there, we have a new one from Kid Cudi with Pharrell Williams and Travis Scott at the party. And if this track is playing at the party, I do not want to be at the party. Frankly, it's pretty underwhelming. Pharrell's got a kooky little instrumental and hook on there. Travis Scott's performance is okay. Some of Kid Cudi's melodic lines are rough, as well as his writing on this one. He's really not writing from a place of passion or kind of like, introspection on a lot of this new material. And I feel like it's led to a lot of his verses just sound very in one ear and out the other. I hope and I understand if the guy is at a point where he just like kind of feels like unburdened, or is just like kind of feeling very free and positive and not like he's weighed down by anything negative he feels pressed to rap about. But in the wake of that change, it just kind of feels like he doesn't really have anything to put in his songs per se. But I don't know. That's my opinion. All right, and we have the new Beatles song, Now and Then. Paul, Ringo essentially got this one together based off of a session they had years and years and years and years and years ago with Jeff Lynne, with this tune they were working on around a John Lennon demo. They couldn't quite get it right because, they couldn't separate the vocal from the piano and so on and so forth. Now, new technology allowed that to happen, so they decided to finish the song. It is being labeled as the final Beatles song. And, it's a very sad, eerie, solid John tune, even if lyrically it's not like his most built out or detailed or anything like that. But the production around it, for the most part, is pretty bad. Like the bass is way too huge, the drums are huge, the strings are scraping, the background vocals are almost drowning out John's vocals. It's a sloppy mess. They really needed to redo the production on this one, frankly. All right, best tracks of the week. Want to shout out a few of those before we are out. We have a new one over here from Silvana Estrada, one of the best singers and songwriters out of Mexico at the moment. This new one, Problema, is beautiful. It's whimsical. It's gorgeous. It's moving. It's touching. It'll make you cry. I promise you. Give it a spin. All right, moving on from there, we have a strange little banger from Sevdaliza and Grimes, Nothing Lasts Forever. It's just a very freaky alt-pop anthem, certainly worth checking out. Even though I wasn't really kind of into a lot of the newest stuff from each artist, they really kind of came together and had some weird and exciting chemistry on this one, that's for sure. All right, moving on from there, producer, singer, songwriter, rapper Quadeca has come through with another handful of tracks off of sort of like an extras, a sketchbook kind of thing. The one that stood out to me the most is Under My Skin. It is eerie, it is haunting, it is beautiful lyrically. It's incredible as well. I love how this guy's like extras and cutting room floor shit is just as hard, or goes maybe even harder than some of the material on the record that he just put out. So awesome. All right, we have a new one from Olivia Rodrigo. It is Can't Catch Me Now, the opening track to the forthcoming Hunger Games soundtrack. Ooh, can't wait to see that Hunger Game. It's a gorgeous, folky, wintry ballad with some great vocal layers. It's quite dramatic, and I think it's just awesome, the versatility that Olivia continues to show as her brand grows. Moving on from there, we have a new one from MGMT, Mother Nature. It is psych ballad, Brit poppy. It is a great first taste of this forthcoming album. Quite the tune. It's not dark and synthy like that stuff off their last record, which I loved as well. Looks like they're going for something kind of more vintage, light and airy this time around. It is quite spellbinding, enchanting, pretty shimmery, and can't wait to hear more. All right, also liking the new single from Megan Thee Stallion, Cobra, new album cycle. Megan is coming through with a really personal, anguished track where she's diving into her depression, relationship woes, just all the drama, all the negativity, everything that's been weighing down on her over the past couple of years or so is just pouring out on this track, and I think it's lyrically one of her best. I like the mystical instrumental too. I think it was definitely a bold choice to not go with a super hooky, crazy, partying, ass shaking type track, which I think there's a lot of fans who obviously love hearing that from Megan, but sadly only want to hear that from Megan. Obviously, at least obviously to me, she has the talent to do otherwise too. And it's just a nice breath of fresh air to hear her switch it up at least every once in a while and do something personal. That's what she did on this track. Again, bold move to kind of kick off this album cycle in that way. And I loved it, even if it's not the hookiest song she's ever come through with. So, all right, quick mention of a rapper extraordinaire, McKinley Dixon, who had one of the best, shortest but fiercest hip-hop records of the year. And Run, 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 if you've heard the album, is a song you should be familiar with because it's, one of the biggest highlights off the record. But we have kind of a new version of the song here that has a great feature from West Coast rapper Blue. So that's a nice, cool, and fun addition. Cheekface, Largest Muscle. America's local band, Cheekface, has a new track out. It's funky. It's fun. I have it on somewhat good authority that the band is going to be dropping a record soon-ish, sooner rather than later. So if you like this, you've been liking the recent material, if you're as enamored with their last album as I was, this is obviously excellent news. Excellent news. And Benny the Butcher, Big Dog, featuring Lil Wayne. Liked this one a lot too. Don't expect too much of this track. I think it's got a solid hook. It's got a lot of crazy one-liners from Wayne in his guest verse here. Benny sounds good on the track as well. It's not the most best or best produced or mixed song you're ever going to hear out of Benny the Butcher, but it does sound like very kind of like fun, raw, lightning in a bottle, freestyle on the radio sort of recording. It's that kind of vibe. It's that kind of vibe, but it's a single instead. Just imagine that vibe on a new track. And I feel like as far as it's expected to be that, it nails it. All right. Flying High Part 2, new EP from The Alchemist. Uncle Al's coming through with a new batch of quality instrumentals, good features as well. Want to specifically point toward the one with Conway the Machine, but Al is also rapping his ass off on a bunch of these tracks too, which is cool. I mean, for anybody who's a newer fan of his, you might be surprised to hear that. But for anybody who's been aware of his work, for a decade plus, the dude can rap. It's just that he hasn't been doing it as much as of late. It's cool to hear him getting back into it and, sounding great in the process. But yeah, he's sounding grimy. He's sounding sick and going toe-to-toe pretty well with Conway on this track over here. There are others, Gangrene's in the mix, Action Bronson's in the mix. So check the EP out. Check the project out. And that is going to be it. Thank you very much. Love you. Anthony Fantano, weekly tracks, forever. Bam. Yeah!